Welcome back to the R.E.P.A.I.R method series. If you've been practicing the first 3 steps we covered in part 1, recognize, engage, regulation, and pause, you've already created the foundation for transformation. But here's where it gets really powerful. What you do after the pause determines whether this rupture becomes a one-time fix or a building block for lifelong emotional intelligence. Today, we're completing the R.E.P.A.I.R method with the final 3 steps: acknowledge, investigate, and restore. Did you know that children who experience consistent repair after conflict show greater empathy, stronger relationship skills, and better academic performance than those who experience fewer conflicts but without repair? That's right. More ruptures with good repair actually build stronger emotional intelligence than fewer ruptures but no repair. Today, I'll show you exactly how to transform post-meltdown moments into the most powerful emotional learning opportunities your child will ever experience. Let's quickly recap where we are in the R.E.P.A.I.R method journey. In part 1, we mastered the first 3 steps. R. Recognize the rupture without shame. E. Engage your own regulation first. P. Pause until both parties are regulated. These 3 steps create the neurological safety needed for what comes next. But maybe you're thinking, I've tried staying calm and pausing, but then what? How do I actually talk about what happened without making things worse? That's exactly what we're covering today. Remember Emma, the 4-year-old with morning meltdowns? Last time we saw how her mom implemented the R.E.P. steps. Now let's see what happened when she added the A.I.R. steps to complete the repair. Once both you and your child are regulated, it's time for the 4th step. Acknowledge feelings and perspectives. This is where the real emotional intelligence building happens. The goal here is not to determine who was right or wrong, but to create a space where all feelings and perspectives are valid. This does not mean all behaviors are acceptable, we'll get to that, but all emotions are acknowledged. The acknowledge step can feel complex, so let me break it down into a simple 3-part formula that works for any age. Part 1. Name the feeling. You felt disappointed. Part 2. Connect it to the trigger. When we could not buy the toy. Part 3. Validate without judgment. That makes sense. Anyone would feel disappointed. That's it. No correction, no teaching, no but statements. Just pure acknowledgement. Let me show you this formula across different ages. For Emma, her mom used this exact formula. You felt frustrated, feeling, when it was time to get dressed. Trigger. That makes sense. Validation. Only after this acknowledgement was complete did she add, and we needed to get ready for school. Notice how "and" maintains the validation instead of erasing it with "but." "And" allows multiple truths to exist simultaneously. If you remember nothing else about this step, remember this: acknowledgement before education, connection before correction. When your child feels truly seen and heard, they become neurologically ready to learn and grow. Here's where most parents go wrong. They acknowledge feelings but then immediately jump to correction or consequences. I understand you're angry, but that behavior is not acceptable. This negates the acknowledgement and triggers defensiveness. Instead, separate acknowledgement from behavioral guidance. I see you were frustrated and wanted to keep playing. Those feelings make sense. Full stop. Let that sink in before addressing behavior. Now you might be thinking, but if I validate their feelings, are not I condoning bad behavior? Great question. Acknowledging feelings does not mean approving behaviors. It means recognizing the legitimate emotions driving those behaviors. Think of it this way. You can validate the navigator, emotions, while redirecting the driver, behavior. Your frustration makes sense, and we need to find a different way to show it next time. This acknowledgement step is where your child learns that emotions are not dangerous, that different perspectives can coexist, and that they are unconditionally worthy of understanding, even when they're at their worst. The 5th step, investigate, transforms these rupture moments from isolated incidents into opportunities for deeper understanding and growth. Most parents skip this step entirely, focusing instead on quick resolution or behavior correction. But without investigation, the same patterns will repeat endlessly. Investigation is not about assigning blame, it's about curiosity. Together with your child, explore what happened before, during, and after the rupture. For Emma and her mom, investigation revealed something surprising. The mornings with the worst meltdowns were always after nights when Emma had less than 10 hours of sleep. Her mom also noticed that giving transition warnings, 5 minutes until getting dressed, actually increased Emma's anxiety rather than helping. For younger children, use simple visual tools like a feelings thermometer or a sequence chart. Ask, what made your feelings start to get bigger? What helped them start to get smaller? For older children, explore patterns across situations. Have you noticed we often have tough moments during transitions? What might help make transitions easier? Let me share a real example that might surprise you. 8-year-old Jaden had massive meltdowns about homework. Traditional investigation might focus on whether the work was too hard or if he was being lazy, but deeper investigation revealed something unexpected. The smell of the pencils triggered sensory overload due to his heightened sense of smell. Switching to mechanical pencils eliminated 90% of the homework battles. This investigation often reveals that behavior we label as bad is actually an attempt to meet a legitimate need through problematic means. The key is maintaining curiosity rather than judgment. Ineffective investigation sounds like, "Why did you do that? You know better." Effective investigation sounds like, "I'm curious what was happening for you right before you threw the toy. What did your body feel like?" For older children and teenagers, investigation might include these powerful questions. What need were you trying to meet? What would have helped in that moment? Have you noticed a pattern to when this happens? What could we both do differently next time? This collaborative detective work builds metacognition, awareness of one's own thought processes, which is a cornerstone of emotional intelligence. For neurodivergent children, including those with autism, ADHD, or sensory processing differences, investigation often reveals sensory or processing needs that are not obvious. Visual supports can make this abstract process more concrete. Creating a visual investigation map with categories like body feelings, triggers, and helpful strategies can help neurodivergent children participate more fully in the process. The final step, restore, completes the repair cycle with 2 essential components: rebuilding connection and creating a plan forward. First, actively rebuild connection through age-appropriate rituals. Young children, 1 to 5. Physical reconnection works best: a special handshake, butterfly hug, or silly dance. Emma and her mom created a special butterfly hug where they crossed their arms, tapped their shoulders, and then embraced. School-age children, 6 to 12. Shared activities, rebuild bridges, taking a walk, making a snack together, or a quick game. Teenagers, respect their style. Some want physical reassurance, others prefer verbal acknowledgement or simply moving forward without dwelling on the incident. Second, create a simple plan forward, not promises never to melt down again, but one small step toward better regulation. For Emma's family, their plan included ensuring adequate sleep and replacing verbal warnings with a visual timer. They also created a cozy corner for self-regulation. Within 3 weeks, morning meltdowns decreased by 70%. But more importantly, when they did happen, both Emma and her mom knew exactly how to repair, transforming these moments from failures into opportunities for growth. This forward-looking approach transforms the rupture from a failure into a stepping stone. As the philosopher Soren Kierkegaard noted, life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. Now, let's address one of the most common challenges parents face. What about when children resist the repair process? This is especially common with older children and teenagers who might walk away, shut down, or say whatever to your repair attempts. First, Understand that resistance to repair often comes from past experiences where talking about it meant lectures, blame, or forced apologies. Your child may need to see this new approach consistently before trusting it. In these moments, respect their need for space while leaving the door open. I see you need some time. I'm here when you're ready to connect. There's nothing to fix. I just want to understand. Ineffective? We need to talk about this right now. Don't walk away from me. Effective? I respect that you need space. I'll check in later, or you can come find me when you're ready. Think about your own experience. When you're upset, do you always want to talk immediately? Or do you sometimes need time to process? Our children deserve the same respect for their emotional process. As the philosopher Martin Buber observed, all real living is meeting. Repair cannot be forced. It must be an invitation to meet each other authentically when both parties are ready. For persistent resistance, try these approaches. Offer alternative communication methods, writing, drawing, texting. Suggest a neutral third party, another trusted adult. Model by repairing your own mistakes consistently. Create shorter, less intense repair conversations. Remember, repair is a skill built over time. Your consistent efforts, even when met with resistance, are teaching your child that relationships can heal after rupture, one of life's most valuable lessons. The beauty of the R.E.P.A.I.R method lies in its universal application across all human connections, not just parent-child relationships. With adult children, friends, partners, and even colleagues, the same neurological principles apply. Ruptures are inevitable, but intentional repair builds stronger connections than relationships that never face conflict. When applying R.E.P.A.I.R with adults, the process remains fundamentally the same, though the language and approach naturally mature. With adult children, acknowledging their full autonomy while recognizing your ongoing attachment becomes crucial. I recognize where having a disconnect respects their adulthood while opening the door to repair. Among friends, the method offers a framework to move beyond the surface-level conflict resolution of, let's just forget about it, to deeper understanding through investigation and acknowledgement. Even in professional relationships, the pause step alone can transform potential escalations into opportunities for improved communication. Perhaps most powerfully, practicing R.E.P.A.I.R in adult relationships models for everyone in your life that vulnerability and repair are not signs of weakness, but rather the foundation of emotional intelligence and relational resilience. As the psychiatrist Dr. Daniel Siegel notes, where attention goes, neural firing flows and neural connection grows, meaning that the intentional attention we bring to repair literally rewires our brains for healthier relationships at any age. Think about a relationship in your life, with an adult child, friend, or partner, where repair has been difficult. Which step of the R.E.P.A.I.R method might create a breakthrough in that connection? How will you know the complete R.E.P.A.I.R method is working? Look for these 5 signs of transformation. 1. Decreased duration of meltdowns. 2. Faster return to connection after ruptures. 3. Your child beginning to initiate repair. 4. Increased emotional vocabulary. 5. More openness about difficult feelings. The most profound transformation often happens subtly. You might notice your child saying, "I need a pause," before reaching full meltdown. Or they might start naming emotions. "I feel disappointed and angry right now." These moments are not accidents. They're evidence of the emotional intelligence you're building through consistent repair. One parent shared that after 3 weeks of practicing the R.E.P.A.I.R method, their 6-year-old came to them after a disagreement and said, "I think we need to do that repair thing now." That's the moment you know these skills are becoming internalized. Another parent noticed their 10-year-old starting to use the investigation step with friends. "What happened before you got mad? What could we do differently next time?" This is emotional intelligence in action, transferring from your relationship to their peer relationships. Here's something parents do not expect. As you consistently practice the R.E.P.A.I.R method, you'll likely see improvements in areas seemingly unrelated to emotional regulation, academic performance, creativity, even physical health. Why? Because when the brain is not constantly managing emotional threat, it can allocate resources to growth and learning. Remember, you're not just solving today's meltdown, you're building your child's emotional foundation for life. The philosopher Heraclitus said, "Good character is not formed in a week or a month. It is created little by little, day by day." The same is true for emotional intelligence. What many parents discover through practicing the R.E.P.A.I.R method is something profound and unexpected. They're not just healing their relationship with their child, but also healing themselves. When you struggle with your child's big emotions, it's often because those emotions activate unresolved wounds from your own childhood, moments when your feelings were dismissed, shamed, or punished. Each time you choose to recognize without judgment, regulate yourself, and acknowledge your child's emotions, you're simultaneously offering validation to the child you once were, who may have never received it. This creates what therapists call dual healing, where both generations heal simultaneously. One mother said, "I realized I wasn't just helping my daughter with her big feelings. I was healing the little girl inside me who never learned how to process disappointment." By consciously choosing repair over reaction, you're creating what family systems therapist Virginia Satir called a new link in the chain, breaking intergenerational patterns and offering your children, and yourself, a different emotional legacy. This is not just about today's meltdown, it's about transforming your family's emotional story for generations to come. Now, let's see the complete R.E.P.A.I.R method in action with a scenario: sibling conflicts. But I'm going to show you both the idealized version and the messy reality. Imagine your 7-year-old and 5-year-old fighting over a toy, escalating to pushing and crying. Ideal scenario: R. Recognize. We have a rupture here. This happens in families. E. Engage regulation. Take deep breaths yourself before intervening. P. Pause. Separate children if needed. Wait until everyone is calm. A. Acknowledge. Sam, you felt frustrated when Ellie took the toy. Ellie, you felt angry when Sam wouldn't share. Both feelings make sense. I. Investigate. What happened before the fight? What solutions could work for both of you? R. Restore. Create a reconnection ritual and a plan for toy sharing. Real-life scenario: R. Recognize. You try to recognize the rupture, but one child is screaming, "He started it," while the other denies everything. E. Engage regulation. You take a deep breath, but then one child pushes the other again, and you snap, "Enough!" before remembering to regulate. P. Pause. You separate them, but one keeps trying to argue their case while the other sulks. A. Acknowledge. You acknowledge one child's feelings, but the other interrupts, feeling it's unfair. I. Investigate. Your investigation is cut short by dinner time. R. Restore. You manage a quick, "let's all take a breath and start over," before moving on. And you know what? That messy, imperfect, real-life scenario still creates positive change. Why? Because you're attempting repair instead of punishment, connection instead of correction. Even partial repair is powerful. Next time, you might get further in the process. The time after that, even further. This is how real growth happens, not in perfect execution, but in consistent attempts. Now that you understand the complete R.E.P.A.I.R method, let's create a realistic 30-day implementation plan with specific daily actions. Days 1 to 7. Focus on R.E.P. steps. Day 1. Simply notice and name ruptures without judgment. Day 2. Practice box breathing during one challenging moment. Day 3. Try physical grounding during stress. Feet on floor, hands together. Day 4. Implement a 2-minute pause before responding to a rupture. Day 5. Create a regulation corner in your home. Day 6. Practice self-compassion phrases during difficult moments. Day 7. combine all R.E.P. steps during one rupture. Days 8 to 14, add the acknowledge step. Day 8, practice the 3-part acknowledgement formula once. Day 9, focus on using and instead of but in conversations. Day 10, acknowledge your own feelings out loud as modeling. Day 11, create emotion cards with your child to expand vocabulary. Day 12, practice acknowledging without immediately problem-solving. Day 13, acknowledge the positive intention behind difficult behavior. Day 14, combine R.E.P. plus A steps during one rupture. Days 15 to 21, add the investigate step. Day 15, ask one curious question during a calm moment. Day 16, create a simple feelings thermometer with your child. Day 17, notice one pattern or trigger and discuss it neutrally. Day 18, practice the phrase, "I'm curious about," instead of "why did you?" Day 19, investigate a recurring challenge together using visual mapping. Day 20, look for sensory or physiological triggers, hunger, tiredness. Day 21, combine R.E.P.A.I. steps during one rupture. Days 22 to 30, complete with the restore step. Day 22, create a reconnection ritual with your child. Day 23, practice one reconnection after a minor disagreement. Day 24, develop a visual repair menu of reconnection options. Day 25, create a simple plan forward after a rupture. Day 26, practice full R.E.P.A.I.R. sequence with a minor rupture. Day 27, teach the method to another caregiver in your child's life. Day 28, notice and celebrate signs of progress in your child. Day 29, reflect on your own growth through this process. Day 30, commit to ongoing practice while celebrating your 30-day milestone. Remember to track your progress. Even implementing 50% of these actions will create significant positive change in your relationship. We began this journey by reframing meltdowns, seeing them not as failures, but as opportunities for profound emotional development. The complete R.E.P.A.I.R. method transforms these moments from sources of shame into building blocks of emotional intelligence. When you recognize ruptures without judgment, regulate yourself first, pause until both of you are ready, acknowledge all feelings and perspectives, investigate patterns together, and restore connection with a plan forward, you're not just managing behavior, you're rewiring both your brains for greater resilience, deeper connection, and authentic emotional intelligence. The next time you find yourself in the aftermath of a meltdown, yours or your child's, remember that this moment, as uncomfortable as it feels, contains within it the seeds of your child's emotional strength. The repair is not just fixing what broke, it's creating something stronger and more beautiful than existed before. Join our 30-day R.E.P.A.I.R. challenge starting today. Share your experiences in the comments, your successes, your struggles. If you found this approach helpful, please share it with other parents who might be struggling with meltdowns and ruptures. Together, we can transform how we approach emotional development. Remember, in the words of the psychologist Carl Rogers, the curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. The same is true for our children. Through R.E.P.A.I.R, we accept them exactly as they are, even in their most dysregulated moments, and in doing so, create the conditions for profound transformation.